If you feel lost or anxious or depressed, if you have problems and addictions you want to eliminate, if you want to improve your life, or you generally just want to have a better time being alive, you want to feel better about yourself and your life, gratitude is the most powerful practice you can develop. I say this as someone who has practiced gratitude on a daily basis for more years than I can count. I'm literally not sure anymore how long I've been doing this for. I just know it's definitely been more than 10 years. And out of thousands of self-improvement experiments I've done over the years, this is the one that has stuck for the longest and has made the biggest difference. So in this video, I'll attempt to convince you to try this out for yourself. And I'll do this by first explaining why gratitude is so powerful and then how exactly to do it. So what makes gratitude such a powerful tool to improve your life? First, consider this rule of life. You always tend to get more of what you focus your time, energy, and attention on. This appears to be universally true, and often it comes along with some very woo spiritual sounding explanations, like, you tune into the vibrational frequency and the universe gives you the thing and manifests into reality what you're thinking of. Honestly, I don't know anything about any of that. Often these explanations seem a bit far-fetched or incomplete to me. But you also don't need to believe in anything particularly spiritual to understand how this rule of life makes sense. Really, we can explain this by just looking at the human brain and understanding that your brain gets better at whatever you practice a lot of. Whatever you do repeatedly, you get better at. That is what the brain is designed to do. That is what makes the human brain so amazing. We are learning and adaptation machines. So this is how you learn a new language, or you learn how to play an instrument, or you learn any kind of new skill. If you practice playing the piano a lot, you get better at playing the piano. And the more you do it, the more you'll notice that your brain is essentially learning how to play the piano in the background. You might notice that in an idle moment, you're waiting for the metro or something. In your mind, you're kind of practicing the latest thing you were practicing on the piano. A powerful example of this is known as the Tetris Effect. As with anything, the more time you spend playing Tetris, the better you get. But what most people notice very quickly is that when you've sunk a couple of hours into Tetris, your brain starts playing Tetris in the background. You will find yourself imagining the falling blocks and rotating the blocks and so on. And this is your brain basically saying, I got it. You spent time and attention on Tetris. You spent time and attention recognizing these patterns, getting better at clearing the rows. I got you, boss. I'm going to keep practicing this in idle time. And this is true for anything, not just for skills, not just for things you deliberately want to learn or practice. The brain does this with absolutely everything that you spend time focusing on. I can tell you a personal story of how this backfired for me, and it backfires for a lot of people. There was a time when I was constantly worried about world news. I was constantly worried about whatever latest disastrous thing was happening in the world. I was always finding new stories, new angles, new information that made me worry even more about how wrong everything's going and how, the economy is crashing and hanging together by a thread, and also climate change is going to kill us all, and also whatever other latest thing was happening. I was so worried all the time. How did this happen? Well, it happened like anything else. I started spending time reading the news and getting worried about things and getting angry about what was going on in the world. And I got better and better at that. I trained my brain to find stories that would be worrying for me, to connect the dots between, oh, this bad thing plus this bad thing must mean even bigger bad thing is going to happen next. I practiced finding things to worry about, being worried about them, and being angry about them. And I got better and better at it. And at some point, it got so bad that I spent most of my day being angry at the state of the world and worrying about the future. You might say I became an expert at it. And of course, this wasn't good for me. And it also wasn't good for anyone else. By the way, me worrying about all this stuff didn't actually make a difference. And also, as is usually the case, most of the things I worried about never came true. But the important point here is that this is simply an example of your brain gets better at whatever you practice frequently. And if that's worrying and being angry, then you get really good at worrying and being angry. Unfortunately, if you look around online, you can see a lot of this happening. You often see this in political discourse, right, where people are so angry at the other side, or whatever the other side is of the political spectrum from you. And people get better and better at identifying things to be outraged about, at finding stories to be angry about, at twisting whatever's happening into a narrative that fuels their outrage. And this, again, is the exact same effect. You're simply spending time recognizing that kind of pattern. So just like your brain can recognize a pattern of a falling Tetris block, it can also recognize a pattern of, ooh, this story, this headline, this thing, I can combine that into something that makes me very angry. So people are getting better at that, and they're getting better and better at being outraged and angry and expressing their outrage and anger, and they get more and more of it. Even if someone is saying, no, I'm trying to fix the problem. I write angry comments all day because I want to fix the problem. I want to bring awareness to this problem. But you don't get less of the problem, do you? You keep getting more of it. If you start paying attention to this, you will find it everywhere. You will see it everywhere, the proof that people always tend to get more of what they focus their time and attention on. The reason I have to suppress a laugh as I say this is because, well, it's kind of an ironic thing to say, isn't it? But that too proves the entire point I'm making. You always tend to get more of what you focus your time, energy, and attention on. Which brings us back to gratitude. When you practice finding things to be grateful for, and feeling grateful for those things, what happens? You will find more and more things to feel grateful for, and you will get better and better at feeling gratitude. This is what happened to me, and the difference it makes is incredibly profound. I don't think I can really put this into words. When I was young, my default state was depressed and anxious and worried, and basically I was not happy. And if you had asked me then, I could have explained all the reasons why I'm unhappy. I could have pointed out all of my problems. I could have pointed out all the things that weren't going well in my life. And I thought those things, those external things, were the reasons I was feeling bad. My experience of life now is that I'm absolutely surrounded by things that I'm profoundly grateful for. And sometimes I feel gratitude so strongly I can barely hold it together. Sometimes I literally just have to take a moment and pause and just feel the immense gratitude I feel at feeling alive, at having the friends I have, at being able to do the work I do, and at just little things like, hey, I still have functioning eyesight. That's great. I am eating food and it tastes good. That's amazing. Like the littlest things can set me off and make me feel unbelievably grateful. In a way, my entire world has changed. I used to be surrounded by problems, by things I'm worried about, by things I'm unhappy about. Now I live in a world where I'm surrounded by things I'm just incredibly grateful for. But importantly, this is independent of my external circumstances. Like before, I have good times and bad times. Sometimes I get lucky and things go great. Sometimes things go horribly wrong. Sometimes I'm in a bad place in life in the sense of, I'm going through a breakup and one of my businesses failed and something else is going wrong. And yet, I still always find things to feel grateful for. I'm still surrounded by things I'm grateful for. So what's really happening here is that independent of external circumstances, I have trained my brain to feel more and more grateful. And as a result, I get more and more things to be grateful for, and I feel more and more gratitude. If you're with me so far, you probably agree that focusing on positive things is a better use of your time than focusing on negative things, since we get more of what we focus on. But that still leaves a question, well, why gratitude? Why am I not focusing on, say, happiness? Gratitude is certainly not the only positive attitude you can cultivate. So yeah, you could focus on cultivating something like joy or happiness or compassion and kindness, such as what you do when you do a metta meditation, which I do recommend, can be really lovely. But there seems to be something about gratitude that makes it really, really powerful. And there is a ton of research in positive psychology that confirms this. Something about gratitude is really powerful in changing your state. And the thing is, when you try to pursue happiness directly, it tends to be elusive. It's almost like the pursuit of happiness itself reinforces your current lack of happiness or something. Whereas gratitude, you can always find something to be grateful for, like genuinely grateful for. And it has happiness as a side effect. I don't know, it's kind of an incomplete explanation, and I'm sure there are people who have more to say about this than me. But it seems to me that happiness is something you kind of have to sneak up on, and gratitude is the way to do it. Now let's address an objection that I know is going to come up. You might right now be hearing me say all this and think, okay, but if I'm all grateful and happy about stuff all the time, Won't that make me like lazy? Won't I stop pursuing my goals? Like, I have all this stuff I want to achieve. I want to be successful. I want to make money. I want to build this life I'm envisioning. And if I'm just always happy and grateful all the time, won't I just like, sit around blissfully doing nothing and essentially ruin my life? And there's so much to say about this, but let me try and keep it brief. So this whole idea comes from kind of an illusion that you've been fed, which says that you have to achieve external things in order to be happy and in order to be successful at life. In order to have a good life, you should have, a great career and a great relationship and money and all this other stuff. And interestingly, the message is often you have to be able to achieve these things and buy this stuff in order to be happy. And if you end up like being happy without pursuing all this, and like you're happy and you're not even in a mansion, you're happy and you're not even driving a BMW, then somehow you failed. So there's this message that is deeply embedded in our psyche, which interestingly is being propagated by people who sell stuff. So there's a whole underlying problem there that I'll not go any further into. But the other thing I want to say is that there's actually no reason to believe that a positive mental state makes you any less ambitious. Yes, many of us get into self-improvement fueled by pain, right? You want to stop being a loser. You want to stop experiencing the pain of suffering of whatever's going wrong in your life. And you go, okay, now I'm going to start working on myself. But that pain is not necessary for you to keep going or to succeed. In fact, there's some interesting research, and Sean Aker is someone who has written books about this research that shows the opposite is true. It is the case that highly successful people tend to be happier. But it is not the case that they are happier because of their success. As it turns out, if you look at the data, it's the other way around. It is happier people who tend to be more successful. This is an important thing to internalize, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense, because the less happy you are, the more tense you are, the less you are in a positive state where you can really unfold your full potential. Like right now, if I were super tense, if I were super worried about making this video, if I felt like this video has to succeed, otherwise I'm a worthless failure, would that make the video better? Probably not. So long story short, don't worry about it. Being happy and grateful will not destroy your ambition. All right, if you're still with me, I hope that I've managed to convince you that gratitude is the greatest skill to develop. Now, how do you do it? And this is great because this is the simple part. First of all, there's almost no way to do this wrong. Any way in which you practice gratitude deliberately and consistently is going to improve your life measurably. But here's my recommendation, and this is what I do personally and have been doing for many years. Every day, write down at least 3 things that you're grateful for. So get out your notebook or type it up or however you like to write things down, and just write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And here's the trick. Write down 3 unique, specific things that you have not written down before. That way you don't just get into a rote routine of, yeah, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my friends, and you like write that every day and basically nothing happens. So you always have to find 3 new things that you're grateful for, and they have to be specific. The best way to do that is, what happened today that I'm grateful for, or what happened yesterday that I'm grateful for, if you're writing in the morning. And then be specific, recall the thing that you're grateful for and write an explanation of why you're grateful for it. So it could be like, yesterday I met my friend and we had this great conversation. I'm grateful for that because talking to her was super inspiring and it gave me this new idea. And that can be, one little paragraph, it can be 2-3 sentences, and that's one specific, unique thing I'm grateful for. Then you do that 2 more times. By doing this, you're also training your brain to always be on the lookout for stuff to be grateful for. This is a key part of why this works. And then simply take a moment to actually feel grateful. So feel the feeling of gratitude in your body. If you find it hard to do that, simply do this little thought exercise of, this could have not happened. So if I think about the conversation with a friend yesterday, it could have been that we didn't have time to meet. It could have been that I never became friends with this person in the first place. And when I think about that, when I consider that I could have gone through life without this experience entirely, I kind of almost get sad for that hypothetical version of me. And I feel so grateful that I'm living in this reality where I do have this friend, that I did have this conversation. And that's it. Do this once a day. It takes anything from 2 to 5 minutes. And that's all there is to it. Don't be deceived by how simple this is or how little time it takes. Like I said, this is the most transformative thing I've ever done. That's enough of me talking about this. I challenge you to try this out. And more specifically, I challenge you to do this every single day for at least 1 year and see what happens.